There was a big blow to the movement to secure justice for Nirbhaya. High Court refused to intervene in Subramanian Swamy's petition asking that the juvenile not be allowed to go free once he completes his 3 years this Sunday. The High Court said current laws simply do not allow this. It's a verdict that shocked and saddened people all across the country.
जो हमें आश्वासन मिला था कि हमको इंसाफ मिलेगा, वो इंसाफ नहीं मिला।
हम कोर्ट से बड़े तो हैं नहीं, तो कोर्ट ने जो किया सोच समझ के किया होगा।
Angry parents of Nirbhaya expressing disappointment at the Delhi High Court's decision to not stay the release of the juvenile rapist. The Delhi High Court order dashed the hopes of Nirbhaya's parents after it said that it can't stay the juvenile's release, thereby paving the way for his release on Sunday. BJP leader Subramanian Swamy had urged the court to not release the juvenile, claiming he had been radicalized while in the reform home. Based on his plea, the court has issued notices to the central and Delhi governments on the matter. The High Court's order has evoked strong response from many quarters. Union Women and Child Development Minister Maneka Gandhi even apologized to Nirbhaya's parents for not being able to deliver justice.
No, whoever's holding it up in the Rajya Sabha should be responsible for it. Hopefully he is rehabilitated. And we can only hope that he will never repeat this terrible crime again.
मेरा जो 3 साल की मेहनत थी, आज मैं फिर एक बार हार गई और क्राइम जीत गया.
The High Court also put a spotlight on the failure of the political parties to amend the Juvenile Justice Act.
लॉ हमारे हैं, उस लॉ में क्या चेंजेस होना चाहिए, उसमें व्यवस्थाएं दी जा रही हैं. इस पर सोच विचार चल रहा है कि आखिरकार हम जुवेनाइल को एज अगर हम बढ़ाएं, इस विषय पर चर्चा चल रही है.
Meanwhile, the Delhi Commission for Women has decided to appeal to Chief Justice of India and President Pranab Mukherjee. Bureau Report, India Today.
The big question that needs to be asked is, why are those provisions of the criminal procedure not being invoked which would allow the Indian state to detain this juvenile after he completes his 3 years in the juvenile home? Let me take you through the specific provisions under which this juvenile can actually be detained. Section 151 of the CRPC, when an executive magistrate receives information that any person is likely to commit a breach of the peace, she can be arrested for a maximum of 1 year. Then there's also section 107 of the CRPC, which says arrest to prevent the commission of cognizable offences, which allows a person to be taken in detention first for a period of 1 day and then subsequently for periods more than that. And this can be done without orders from a magistrate, without a warrant. If a police officer knows that there is a design to commit a cognizable offence, this person can be arrested. Now remember, there's an IB report which says that this juvenile has been radicalized. Does that not constitute basis for these provisions of the criminal procedure to be invoked? There's also the law that's been stuck. The amendment to the Juvenile Justice Act was passed in the Lok Sabha on the 7th of May 2015. The Rajya Sabha was supposed to pass it. Instead, they're now talking about sending it to a select committee. And there are several MPs who've petitioned saying that kids will be kids, that we shouldn't lower the age from 18 to 16, which is what the Juvenile Justice Amendment Act seeks to do. Lower the age so that if there is another Nirbhaya-like case, God forbid, that person is not allowed to go scot-free. And this is why this is really important. In the year 2012, there were 39,822 juveniles who were apprehended. In 2013, it went up to 43,000. Last year, it was 48,000, up 10,000 almost from the time of Nirbhaya's murder. The number of juveniles committing crimes going up. The response of the Indian state has been completely lax. I want to go across now to Union Minister for Child and Women Development, Maneka Gandhi. She's joining me live and exclusive on the newsroom tonight. Ms. Gandhi, thank you. Welcome. I want to begin by asking you, as someone who's been trying very hard, crusading relentlessly to try and ensure that this juvenile doesn't get away, how big a setback is the Delhi High Court order today?
It's not a setback. I expected it to happen because there's no law under which we can hold the boy. But it is a big disappointment that not just him, but many people like him will go out into the world and be completely free. In fact, you're not even allowed to discuss under the current law. You don't even get to discuss their criminal background.
Ma'am, but there are
They walk out on
provisions
a clean
of the CRPC under which this juvenile could have been kept behind bars. Let me cite Section 107 of the CRPC, Security for Keeping Peace. Also Section 151, Arrest to Prevent Commission of Cognizable Offences. If there is an imminent threat to public order, the Supreme Court says people can be taken into custody. Now, when there are reports coming out that this person has been radicalized, he could be involved in attacks in the future, is that not basis enough to keep him behind bars, Ms. Gandhi?
No, they can't. Those sections can't be invoked. It wouldn't be fair. It would be breaking the law. And there's no evidence to show any of that. If he's been radicalized, I'm saying it poses a much bigger question. And that's a question we should ask ourselves. What on earth were Kashmiri terrorists doing in a children's reform school? That means that we should bring that act in very quickly. Because at the moment, even a bomber, even somebody who sets fire to a mall and kills 1 million people, if he is 16 years old or below, he goes into a children's reform school.
Ma'am, you're saying there's no evidence to invoke sections like Section 151, but there are Intelligence Bureau reports that suggest that this juvenile has been radicalized while he was supposed to be in a juvenile remand home. Now, if there are IB reports which the government has coming from its own intelligence agencies, surely that is grounds to believe that this person poses an imminent threat to security.
No, they took it to court because that's the only legal thing to do. If we start breaking the law, then nobody is safe. But certainly this was taken and pesh karod in court, and the court wouldn't accept it. So what could we do?
There are past instances where these provisions have been invoked successfully. You're saying that the courts would not have accepted it. Without trying, there's no way of knowing. There's also the amendment to the Juvenile Justice Act, which has been stuck in the Rajya Sabha, which seeks to lower the age of a juvenile from 18 to 16 years for crimes such as the one against Nirbhaya. Now, that's been stuck for a very long time. While this won't have any impact in this case, at least it sends a message to other juvenile criminals. But that you haven't been able to get through. Are you hopeful that something could happen in the last 3 days of the winter session that are still left, Mr. Gandhi?
No, it's too late for this boy, but it will be helpful if it's passed. I've repeatedly asked for the Rajya Sabha to pass it because it's not a political act and it's really very essential. The largest number of crimes that are increasing are being done by between 16 and 18-year-olds, and the police say that a lot of children who commit rape and other heinous crimes, they walk themselves into thanas and they say, "Dekhiye humne ye kiya hai, now please put us under JJ." And this applies most particularly to terrorist groups who use 16-year-olds to do their dirty work.
And that is particularly worrying. Now, women and men alike are equally worried about what happens on Sunday. Subramanian Swamy has been claiming through the day that the juvenile will stay under observation for the next 2 years. We spoke to the government's counsel, the ASG, the Additional Solicitor General. He said, no, the juvenile walks free on Sunday. As the minister, can you shed some light? What exactly will happen on Sunday? Will the juvenile walk free or not this Sunday?
I don't know. My guess is as good as yours. Even if he walks free, I have asked the Home Ministry for 2 things that this case should teach us. One, that any sexual offender, whether he's 12 years old or he's 50 years old, should be kept under watch. And he should have to report to the police wherever he goes, and he has to report periodically. The second is that we should make a central register of crimes. As the law exists now, this child, he's no longer a child, he's an adult now. This person, if he shifts to, for instance, Kerala or Tamil Nadu, he has a clean slate. Because from a children's reform school, he doesn't have a criminal sheet. So he can go anywhere and he's as free as a bird. He doesn't necessarily have to go back to Badaयूं.
No, but ma'am, people watching this broadcast, people on the outside, don't know his name, they don't know what he looks like, and he'll be out there somewhere. The kid who was the most gruesome in his attack against Nirbhaya, will be out. He could be on the same bus as you and you wouldn't know it. Will someone be keeping an eye on what he does, where he goes, whom he meets, or will he be just out there free to do what he pleases?
No, I'm sure the Home Ministry people know his name, and I am sure that if he goes back to Badaयूं, they will keep a watch on him. At least I hope so. But you know, through you, I'd really like you to ask the Rajya Sabha to pass the act. It's been almost 1.5 years now. And the latest thing is, they've written to me, certain members of parliament have written to me saying they want it to be sent now to a select committee. And all the names in the select committee are those people who don't want the act passed. Because they keep saying children will be children. I don't understand how this children will be children applies. Because if the perpetrator is a 16-year-old, the victim is almost always a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. We've had 6-month-old cases where babies have been raped. So the victims are also
But I'm very concerned about this. The select committee could just be a ruse to send this bill into a long loop. Juveniles are continuing to commit crimes. The number of those crimes is going up, and Parliament doesn't seem to be showing any urgency at all in trying to get this bill passed, Mrs. Gandhi.
No, I don't know whether it should go into select. I mean, it's passed through standing committees, it's passed through every kind of committee possible. And I'm surprised that the Congress and their people should be asking for this, because the bill started during their time. At least the subtext of the bill started during their time.
So you're saying this is just an attempt by the Congress to play petty politics, to try and show you down, to try and, you know, not give the BJP something to show, something which is in the interests, the larger interests of society, and yet the Congress, for its petty reasons, not wanting to allow this to go through. Is that your charge?
It's just politics, and it's unfortunate because this is a real and present danger.
It truly is a real and present danger, and it is quite pathetic that our politicians aren't coming together, aren't working to try and pass these bills, that they'd rather score brownie points than try and ensure that our daughters, our sisters, our mothers and our wives are safe. Quite a sad state of affairs this. Maneka Gandhi, for joining me on the newsroom tonight, thank you very much. The government's counsel in this case, Additional Solicitor General Sanjay Jain, has said that the juvenile will walk free on Sunday. Remember, Subramanian Swamy came on our channel this afternoon and said that the juvenile will remain under observation for the next 2 years. But the government's lawyer says no, he will be free to go back to his parents on Sunday. Let's listen to Sanjay Jain.
The order is in 3 parts. In the first part, the court has declined the prayer not to release the juvenile till such time he ceases to be a menace to the society. That was the prayer. The court has declined it. The court has held that under the current law, under no circumstances, a juvenile in conflict with law can be kept beyond 3 years. The second part of the order accepts my arguments that post-release plan, which was prepared by the management committee, is inadequate. In the sense that the court has directed the authorities to prepare a plan which would deal with all the 3 aspects, that is rehabilitation, integration and follow-up for 2 years. And the third part of the order is the court has said that the broad question as to whether the juvenile in conflict with law, that is JCL, should be released without reformation or not, would need further examination. And for this purpose, the court has posted the matter now for 28th March 2020.
Okay. Would you dispense this particular thought, sir? Where, we just heard a short while back, and it's causing confusion because, with legal jargon is difficult to simplify. The petitioner, Subramanian Swamy, has said that, the judgment is drafted in such a manner that will keep the juvenile in custody. So that is wrong.
That is wrong.
I want to go across now to the petitioner in this case. It was Subramanian Swamy who took this matter to the High Court. He's joining me on this broadcast right now. Thank you very much, Dr. Swamy, for joining me on the newsroom. We just heard from the government's counsel, the Additional Solicitor General, that Nirbhaya's rapist, the former juvenile, will walk free on Sunday. You came on record on our channel earlier this evening and said, no, he'll be under observation for 2 years. but the government's counsel is rejecting your position. So what's going on?
Well, in that case, one has to look at the judgment which has been delivered. Paragraph 9 quotes the Additional Solicitor General Mr. Jain saying that his stay can be extended according to the rules, and because his mental status has not been determined yet and his social synchronization has not been worked out, and therefore his stay should be extended. And then the court goes on to recommend that even though we are not in a position because of the law, it says 3 years, but the other rules are sufficient to see that he is kept under a check in paragraphs 13, 14, 15. So I'm surprised that the Additional Solicitor General would do a somersault like this, because what he has said is being recorded by the Delhi High Court. It is not his statement. They have recorded as they have understood it, and on that basis they have said, well, despite the fact that that they can't stop him from being released from the Juvenile Justice Board, but nevertheless the management committee will be in a position to keep him under control.
Dr. Swamy, there are Intelligence Bureau reports that you've been highlighting which say that this juvenile has been radicalized, that he poses a threat to public peace. Now there are provisions of the criminal procedure which can be invoked. Now, why is the BJP government not invoking those provisions to take this person under preventive custody? You can say that he's out because he's no longer a juvenile, but there are other laws that can be applied and he can still be kept in jail.
No, I will see tomorrow what happens, whether the new position of the Additional Solicitor General made outside court is the correct one, or the one he told the court is the correct one. And if it turns out that he has been let free, I'll certainly going to go back to the court and file a contempt petition, and then I will also ask our government. In fact, it was I who first in July wrote to the Prime Minister saying that I am hearing stories that this man has become radicalized. Please look at it. The whole process of asking for IB reports, everything started after that. And I am very concerned, because this is not a question of just of Nirbhaya's brutal murder and rape, but also the question of all the females who are feeling terrorized by
just before we started this interview, I was speaking to Union Minister Maneka Gandhi, and she says that these IB reports actually raise the far bigger question about how jihadis were able to penetrate the reform center, the juvenile remand house home where this person was being kept. So how is it that terrorists managed to penetrate that place? If there's an IB report that says he's been radicalized, the question is, how did the terrorists get to him?
Absolutely. You see, this juvenile justice system has become an international racket for many NGOs. They have never done any serious work, and they have been neglected once they have got a juvenile into that home, and then they produce these quotas. And I think this Nirbhaya case has given us a wonderful opportunity to rectify all the damage that has been done to the juvenile system.
You're saying that these are NGOs that do this because it's their business, but I've been speaking to several human rights activists, and they say that these IB reports could just as easily have been cooked up, that these are trumped up charges. You're finding some grounds to ensure that the juvenile doesn't get away and that they won't stand in a court of law. Is that not being... Who knows? It's a very serious charge that terrorists have been in touch with this juvenile. We don't know if that's true. That's a confidential supposed IB report. Now, human rights activists would diss that kind of stuff and say that this makes a mockery of our legal system, does it not?
Precisely, this is what my petition, which now the Delhi High Court today has accepted and issued notice to all the authorities. I said, when the Juvenile Justice Act is based on the principle that you will be reformed, supposing you are not reformed, there is a legislative vacuum created. What do you do with people who don't get reformed?
Okay.
And so you've given him a chance. 3 years he was at state expense there, and he doesn't seem to have reformed. Now IB reports are cooked up. That's a very bland statement. Please tell me whether on what basis you say that. Just because it's fashionable to denounce the IB, you have denounced it.
Okay, finally, Dr. Swamy, what happens next? Is going to the Supreme Court an option? Will you reach out to the Prime Minister? Will you reach out to the Kejriwal government? What happens next in this case? Will this juvenile be out on Sunday? What happens next?
No, the High Court has correctly said that they don't have the power to stop him from being released from the Juvenile Justice Act and the Juvenile Justice Board. But they have said that the issue I have raised, that there is a legislative vacuum and it has to be filled, that has to be seriously considered. And B, that even though he is going to be freed from the Juvenile Justice Board, the Solicitor General's, Additional Solicitor General's statement read with the rules provide for enough safeguards in the meantime. So that part I will go and get the High Court to give a clarification and a direction to the Additional Solicitor
Okay, I'm going to leave it over there. Dr. Subramanian Swamy, for joining me on the newsroom tonight. Thank you very much, sir. I want to go across now to Asha Devi and Badrinath. They are Nirbhaya or Jyoti's parents. They are joining us on the newsroom this evening. आशा देवी जी, बद्रीनाथ जी, सबको बहुत अफसोस हुआ इस बात का कि तमाम कोशिशों के बावजूद, आपकी इतनी मेहनत, इतनी मशक्कत के बावजूद कोर्ट ने किसी भी तरीके से निर्भया के जुवेनाइल रेपिस्ट के खिलाफ कोई मुकदमा नहीं सुनाया। अब इसके आगे आप लोगों का क्या प्लान बन रहा है?
अब इसके आगे हम क्या प्लान बनाए? सरकार ने अपना फैसला दिखा दिया, कोर्ट ने अपना फैसला दिखा दिया। कोर्ट ने ये साबित फैसला देके समाज में ये दिखा दिया कि हमारे पास कोई रूल नहीं है, हमारे पास कोई ताकत नहीं है कि हम विक्टिमों को इंसाफ दें। आप 18 साल से पहले कुछ भी कर सकते हो, किसी महिला के साथ कुछ भी कर सकते हो, आपको कोई सजा नहीं है। सरकार ने ये दिखा दिया कि आप चाहे जितना मर्जी संघर्ष कर लो, जितना मर्जी आंदोलन कर लो, कुछ भी कर लो, लेकिन जो हमें करना है हम वही करेंगे। हमारी 3 साल की जो हम हर दर दर भटक के हाथ जोड़ के इंसाफ मांगे, आज हमें वो हाथ जोड़ने का इंसाफ ये मिला कि आज मेरे मुंह पे सीधे तमाचा आया कि आप चाहे जो मर्जी कर लो, कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते।
बद्रीनाथ जी, जो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस एक्ट का अमेंडमेंट है वो पिछले कई महीनों से मेनका गांधी लगातार कोशिश कर रही है, लेकिन वो राज्यसभा में पड़ा हुआ है, वो पास नहीं हो रहा। आपको नहीं लगता कि कहीं ना कहीं हमारे नेताओं को थोड़ी शर्म करनी चाहिए? आए दिन आपस में लड़ते झगड़ते रहते हैं, काम करने के पास इनका वक्त नहीं है, लड़ाई करने के लिए इनका खूब वक्त है। और निर्भया को जो इंसाफ देने की बातें सबने की, उस पे किया इनमें से किसी ने कुछ नहीं? बद्रीनाथ जी,
अगर कुछ भी किए होते तब तो समझ आ ही जाता कि नहीं कुछ किए हैं, लेकिन उन्होंने सचमुच कुछ नहीं किया है और हमें उम्मीद है कि करेंगे भी नहीं, क्योंकि इनके दिल में कोई दिल तो है नहीं, सीने में पत्थर का दिल है, वो धड़कता ही नहीं है तो करेगा क्या?
सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी ने ये कहा कि हो सकता है कि अगले 2 साल वो निगरानी में रहे, ऑब्जर्वेशन में रहे, सीधा संडे को सड़क पे शायद ना आए ये जुवेनाइल रेपिस्ट, 2 साल के लिए निगरानी में रहे। आपको लगता है कि उससे थोड़ा फायदा होगा आशा देवी जी? या आपको लगता है कि 2 साल का वो भी ऑब्जर्वेशन में, कैद में नहीं, जेल में नहीं, ऑब्जर्वेशन में रहने ना रहने का कोई फायदा नहीं?
यही 2 साल की सजा आज कोर्ट ने मेरे सामने कह देता कि नहीं, वो बाल न्यायालय से निकल के वो ऐसा क्राइम किया है, वो 2 साल जेल में रहेगा, तो मैं संतोष कर लेती कि नहीं, कहीं कुछ तो हमारी कोर्ट, हमारी न्याय व्यवस्था, हमारी सरकार कुछ तो अपने दायरे से बाहर आई क्राइम को देख के। लेकिन जो फैसला हमारे सामने आया, मैं वहीं कोर्ट में खड़ी थी, उससे हमें को यही समझ आया कि नहीं, समाज में कुछ भी हो, चाहे किसी की जान चली जाए, चाहे किसी की बच्ची मर जाए, लेकिन नहीं हमारी न्याय व्यवस्था पर फर्क पड़ने वाला है, नहीं हमारी सरकार पर, क्योंकि वो अपना रोल फॉलो करेंगे।
बद्रीनाथ जी, हमने देखा कि दिल्ली सरकार उसको 10,000 रुपए देना चाहती है, एक सुइंग मशीन, सिलाई की मशीन देना चाहती है, और कई लोगों ने कहा कि चलिए इसने जितना भी बड़ा क्राइम क्यों ना किया, एक सुधार का, एक रेफॉर्मेशन का मौका इस जुवेनाइल को भी मिलना चाहिए। क्या आपको लगता है कि एक सुधार का मौका मिलना चाहिए क्योंकि वो उस वक्त पे नाबालिग था, या आपको लगता है कि इस तरह की बातें करना भी निर्भया की तौहीन करने की तरह है?
आज उसको सिलाई की मशीन दी जाए, चाहे दुकान खुलवाई जाए, मुझे उससे मतलब नहीं है। मैं तो ये कहती हूँ कि 10,000 रकम तो छोटी है, आप लाखों दीजिए और जितने जुवेनाइल जेल में हैं सबको दीजिए कम, क्योंकि वो मर्द हैं, उनका जीने का हक है। वो प्रधान है, देश के प्रधान हैं, वो भविष्य है। महिलाएं कुछ नहीं है। जो आधी आबादी कही जाती है कि आधी आबादी महिला की है, अगर कहीं भी महिला संसद में बैठी हो, जो भी हो, उसको ये बात समझना चाहिए कि ये फैसला कितना बढ़िया आया है। अगर कहीं भी महिला संसद में है तो इसके खिलाफ आवाज उठाना चाहिए कम से कम।
बहुत अहम बात आशा देवी जी आप कह रही हैं कि तमाम महिलाओं को एकजुट होना चाहिए, पर मैं कहता हूं कि केवल महिलाओं को ही नहीं बद्रीनाथ जी, यहाँ पर पुरुषों को भी एकजुट होना चाहिए, क्योंकि निर्भया आपकी ज्योति आपकी बेटी थी, लेकिन किसी की बहन, किसी की दोस्त हो सकती है, और ऐसे में सिर्फ महिलाओं की लड़ाई नहीं है, ये एक ऐसी लड़ाई है जिसमें सबको जुड़ के साथ देना है। ये केवल महिलाओं की सुरक्षा की बात नहीं है, तो उससे बड़ी लड़ाई है।
वो 3 साल कर क्या रहा था? सुधरने के लिए तो रखा गया था, तो जो 3 साल में नहीं सुधरा का वो 2 साल में सुधर जाएगा, इसकी क्या गारंटी है? ये सिर्फ जनता को बेवकूफ बनाया जा रहा है, जनता को झुठलाया जा रहा है, ये सिर्फ उलझाया जा रहा है कि तुम उलझे रहो, हम तो सुलझे हैं।
आशा देवी जी क्या कहना चाहेंगे आप प्रधानमंत्री से, क्योंकि प्रधानमंत्री क्या कर सकते हैं ये इंश्योर करने के लिए कि एक तो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस अमेंडमेंट बिल पास हो, और साथ ही साथ इस जुवेनाइल पर लगातार नजर बनी रहे। अगर वो रेडिकलाइज हुआ है, अगर वो कट्टरपंथियों की सोच से अपनी सोच मिला चुका है, तो उसे बाहर निकलना नहीं देना चाहिए।
बिल्कुल नहीं निकलने देना चाहिए। मैं यही सीएम साहब से भी, प्रधानमंत्री जी से हमारा हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है कि जिस तरह से उसको 3 साल जेल में रख के सुधारा गया है और वो जिहाद सीखने लगा है, तो वो कितना सुधरा है आप देख सकते हैं। तो हमारी रिक्वेस्ट है कि अगर कहीं भी आपके दिल के कोने में अगर निर्भया की क्राइम याद है, आप उसको समझते हैं, तो उसको किसी तरह जेल से बाहर ना आने दिया जाए, और आगे के लिए जो बिल लोकसभा में या राज्यसभा में लंबित है उसको पास करवाइए और महिलाओं की सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित कीजिए।
आपकी आवाज के साथ, आपकी सोच के साथ पूरा देश आज खड़ा है, और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि न केवल पत्रकार, न केवल टीवी चैनल, बल्कि वो लोग जो कि संसद में बैठे हैं, जिनके पास क्षमता है कानूनों को पास करने की, वो भी आपकी अपील को सुनेंगे और एक बार फिर से निर्भया के साथ नाइंसाफी नहीं होने देंगे। I'm going to leave it over there. India has failed Nirbhaya twice now. The first time when she was allowed to be raped, and the second time when the rapist is getting away, and the system is just too busy squabbling amongst themselves to go out and try and make a difference. That was Badrinath and Asha Devi speaking to us on India Today.